It's time to do something that's really, really special. That started happening from 1928, and I've been telling you for time and again that they started building bunkers, defensive bunkers, way before Hitler ever came to power. Behind me, you see something you will never really have seen before, and I have really never seen before either. Let me show you exactly what they did and how this started before Tod came and turned this into a Regelbauten fest. It started with these little things, these defensive lines, 1928. Today we're going to the most eastern part of Poland, what was East Prussia back in the day. We're going to visit one of the very special places, one I have always wanted to see and show you, a real battlefield and real fortified bunker lines that were built between 1928 and 1932. The Litzbach Triangle in the Heidelberg fortification line. Now, it was mostly built in forested areas to provide partial protection against tanks, and thus no real need to expand the position in depth, at least not initially. These were also heavily camouflaged in really innovative ways, you'll see. The backbone of this position was mostly machine gun bunkers, which utilizing flanking fire and a lot of barbed wire entanglements, mines, as well as covering the roads and forest clearings with fire. The direction of fire was laid out as to provide mutual protection, thus secured the shelters with interlocking fields of fire, and the bunkers were often groups in twos and occasionally threes. Now, in case of mobilization, interlocking trenches would be filled with soldiers and additional machine gun positions, and mortar positions and artillery further back. This is an extremely interesting position because it was laid out before Hitler came to power and before the real concept of heavy large bunkers was developed. Initially, they were built to defend against a possible Polish attack. However, as it turned out, it stood the fight in 1945 against the Russians, and it stood here for 2 months after they had taken Königsberg a little further east. Fortunately, quite a few of these bunkers are still intact, so now we are going to walk a battlefield that was laid out in 1928, but saw its baptism of fire in 1945 in a very different war than it was designed for, yet it held against the modern Russian army for several months. And it's very nice when some of the people here have decided to restore the trench system around these bunkers, which is a very special place because this was already laid out conceptually in 1928, with construction starting in the early 30s before Hitler ever came to power, being one of the places where, due to the Treaty of Versailles, the Germans were actually allowed to make a small fortified position. These bunkers are intact, and they're pre-World War II. They're pre-1933, which makes this really special. Almost looks like a Heinrich shelter. Doesn't it almost?
I don't know. There's the machine gun position. Fernspeer, there's even German inscription in it.
I love it. Okay, so it's smaller than a Heinrich, but it is very similar. You saw the corrugated metal. We started seeing that use in World War I and some of the field fortifications around Verdun as well, which is really interesting that this was still the memory of the First World War. And here's a Panzerplatte. You see there's the steel bars here, the screws, where you would have a steel plate mounted here. And all the writing is here is very nice. So all these would have been intercommunicating. All these bunkers would be, I'm guessing, since Kabeltechnische cables into pipe in the ground, will probably have ground-based cables between them, so there would be communication between them. They had time when they built this, because this was built in 1928 to 32. So they had plenty of time. Achtung, Feind hört mir. Enemy hears me. Oh, those are, yeah, so that is the ventilation pipes. I wonder, there's a plate on the inside of this, wasn't there? Since all these screws, though, yeah, it was mounted here.
Yes.
Offenrohr. So there would have been a little bunker oven sitting here somewhere.
Exactly.
Yeah. A little mount for an MG08 or something like that in here. There's something else here. There's another pipe, so you can actually see to the flank here from the side. So you'd actually sit here and you'd look at muzzle of the gun protruding right there. So you can see down that way. And here's a steel plate as well. It doesn't work, really. You have this nicely restored bunker and the slide don't work. Fine, I'll forgive you. Oh yeah, here's the ventilation type from the oven pipe was there. All right, these are small single chamber bunkers, one of the typical structures that are built here, and relatively low resistance to enemy fire as well. However, they were small and hard to hit, but they would protect the crew from grenades and small arms fire and indirect artillery. Well camouflaged and built into the terrain, all things that would make a direct hit from artillery rather unlikely. They were built around sheets of corrugated iron, which had the name Heinrich profile, which later have given the name to the Heinrich bunkers that I have shown you in other places. Building the bunkers around these steel sheets made it fast and easy to construct. The walls and ceilings above were about 30 centimeters thick. And right next to the machine gun here was a small annex for flanking fire, an embrasure defending against access to the main brazier. These were fitted with 2 centimeter steel plate and armed with an MG08. The entrance had shelter doors in 2 parts, which varied between 2 and 3 centimeters thickness. The reason for the 2 parts, as the Prussians had long discovered many years ago, that a bunker door might be obstructed with debris. Thus, the crew could still get out of the top. It's nice they built running trenches. But again, they had time to build these. And it's a little narrow. I wonder if the trenches was built in 32. They almost had to be.
Yes.
You would have trenches and then they were covered by camouflage netting. This is very neat. But it's interesting. In 1928 and 32, they were still somewhat living in a World War I mindset. We're still thinking, we haven't quite gotten to the point where we accept that we're not going to start a war in a trench. And we got the front here. Very, very small cross section. Doesn't take a whole lot of real estate. Small, low. For observation there. And remember, there's steel plate on the inside, where later on that steel plate will be placed on the outside. And here's the hooks for the... Just look at the hooks for the camouflage netting. Look at how thick this metal is just for camouflage netting. You would never see that in 1942, 43, 44. Waste so much just for the netting. That you'd never see that. That's awesome. Really had time and money here. I mean, imagine the trench would probably have come all the way around to here, or unless they have it would have to have been. I mean, this could also have been a shells falling here.
These are shell craters.
Yeah.
These are shell craters.
Another interesting part of this was that after the Paris Convention of 1927, Germany was allowed to construct defensive fortifications in only one place, here in East Prussia, where several fortified lines were thus constructed, named the Heilbergstellung, and later more fortified lines were constructed to protect Königsberg, but all initially in order to withstand that Polish possible attack. I love it when people, they redig these things so people can see today roughly what it looked like.
Exactly.
I'm just curious when they dug these out, what they found. They may very well have found something while they dug. They must have found something.
Yeah, sure.
So do we follow the trench or do we?
I would say so. Then
That's usually how it goes.
follow the trench, and then somewhere there should be bunker number 2. There's the next sign.
And they really did it correctly. They did it right when they redug these old trenches in the circular defense here. Very, very interesting. I would love to know what they found when they excavated these trenches. And that's why it's in a circle.
Single line chamber, lightweight concrete shelter designed for the company commander. Typical structure built in 1932 for the forest sections of the Litzbach position. It's one of the few well-preserved shelters of this type in Poland.
Alright. Well, it's missing a door, but you still see the paint. Yeah, the camouflage paint in the reds and yellows and greens. And still have the metal for where the ventilation or chimney tube came out. Corrugated metal on the walls again. And there's a heavy hook. And there's a heavy hook. And that's where his bed would be connected, I will bet you.
And here is a heavy hook.
Right in the door? Okay, now I'm confused again. What were they doing with all these hooks? I'm very confused. That's okay. So that would probably be the bunker stove would be here or there. That would be there, right?
Yeah.
That's that ventilation hole. So what's the hole here for?
This was only the HQ for the company commander, so he was sitting in. He had his own private accommodation.
Well, but he would have had a bunker heater himself.
Yeah.
And he would have communications as well.
Yeah.
And the hooks could have been for fold-down tables as well, I guess. I've seen something to that effect, but we're going to have to look that up a little bit. And nobody fragged it. The hole doesn't go through.
That's weird.
But it is interesting how that one really doesn't come through unless this is not. Yes, it is. And you see the construction material again. They had time and money here. You have the commander sitting over there. You have the little bunker sitting down there. And here's the next on the side of the forest road. And now the trees on top of it are younger than 70 years. But it does look wonderfully as if it's almost designed for camouflage, doesn't it? This is a medium shelter, roughly constructed similar to the light shelter. However, the walls here are between 50 to 100 centimeters thick, with the ceiling about 80 centimeters, and the interior was slightly smaller, but with 4 centimeter thick steel plate against the heavy machine gun, Model 08, and steel doors around 2 centimeters thickness, with a porthole for close defensive to the rear. No brace. Oh, here's the steel plate is still in place. Yeah, the Panzerplatte was only a couple of centimeters. Yeah, the steel plate's still in place. That's very nice. But and then there'll be another sliding embrasure on here that will be screwed into all of this. Yeah, all these holes here would have been sliding. There would have been a slide here. And it's interesting. And I've taken note of this orange color. This is a rust proofing the German Army used for quite a few years. And you will see this inside some of the unfinished steel domes as well. And I can tell you, sitting inside a steel dome that is painted completely orange inside is very, very freaky. It's a very psychedelic experience, and it doesn't feel authentic, it doesn't feel right, it feels like you went into a rave somewhere, but it's correct. And
You can see here. wooden fittings.
And it's interesting, we hear they literally fitted the fittings right where you needed to put a screw or a nail. In the Regelbauten later, they would cover the whole war length so you could put more things in there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they learned things. I guess it's connecting around a steel beam that runs the center of the corrugated metal here. And I guess the heater was here. And this is really all you would see. That's very low to the ground. What are you looking at? If you look down that way, a little path, there's probably a road back then. Probably a trench somewhere, I would imagine. Was this a trench or was this a path? What do you think?
That's a path, yeah.
That's a path, right? Yeah. And there probably was a valley road here back in the day. The typical MG08 weighed 23 kilos, it chambered a 7x9 2 round, and an effective firing range about 2,000 meters, with a muzzle velocity about 900 meters. It was based on the Maxim gun.
That is weird.
I like weird.
You do not go in there. There is deep water. There is deep water.
Well, yeah. This is just like the dip in the first MG bunker.
And there's a little frog swimming in there.
No, I'm good. So the frog has a friend. Why,
see it's about
when they
30
built these
centimeters.
things, why would you make a dip right inside the door to begin with? I mean, what was the point of that?
Good question.
I know. So this is basically facing the other one that is facing this direction. It is.
They can have crossfire, so to speak.
They are, yeah.
That's crossfire.
These are, yeah, they're firing, so... But if they were expecting a Polish attack, wouldn't the Polish attack pretty much come from behind me?
You cannot go here
From that way?
from behind you. You have to use certain old ways and what have you for accessibility. But here, as you can see, so...
Yeah, just like the first one, not ridiculous. So for the MG08, and I guess there's a little flanking fire to the side there as well. I'm not going to swim over and show you. It looks like the Panzerplatte is still there. No, it's gone. Yeah, the steel plate's gone. It would have been mounted there. So that was to provide a flanking fire with a bunker down there. The next one's down there. And yeah, exactly like the first one. Here's a little machine gun MP port. And the heavy one. Okay, it's not pointing, it's pointing towards rather the first one. Interesting. So, what's that doing? I see these everywhere, just don't know what they are. I never figured out what these are. If it's a modern forestry thing.
That's the same type of concrete.
Yeah, I just don't know what they are. I've seen them everywhere.
Garbage.
I don't think they built bunkers with garbage in mind.
For water.
Maybe.
Otherwise I couldn't think of why they were building such a thing. And this is clearly, when you look at the concrete here and you compare with that one and here, this is clearly the same age to me. So this is an old concrete tube.
And it's not round. It's got a flat side and a flat side, and then the rest is round. Almost so you could stick it in a corner. Camouflage netting rebar. It is so thick. Aha! Here's the next one, and here's another one of these.
Weird.
Clearly from the period.
Weird.
And like it's cut little angles. I see these so many places, and I never actually figured out what they were for.
I can only imagine some kind of drainage, water related or whatever, something like that.
Yeah, this is the MG bunker again,
Yeah, same
with
thing.
another little strange little pool that will be there. Now I'm going to jump into the pool because want to see if there's drainage. There might be drainage. There might have been some sort of a drain there. I'm just questioning why in God's name you would put something that would turn into a pool here, because every time it would rain, the water would come in here, no matter how much you would, because there's not even a lip on the door really to keep water out, and it would fill up with water. Yeah. And this is pointing in between the other two, really. And the hooks, I keep wondering about, were allowing for suspension of sleeping hammocks. This position was further expanded in 1936 with additional shelters of various sizes. Also further back, another line of larger bunkers was then constructed. Those we're going to have a look at in a minute when we leave here. Just as fascinating is that these shelters and bunkers had almost the same construction to the machine gun shelters, also based on corrugated plate steel ship, as before World War I. Now, I've noticed that there's part of this bunker that sits in an unnatural way, because this is usually not how bunkers they look. Something went wrong here, maybe, sort of.
Oh, yes.
Well, this accounts for the unnatural position of this bunker. Somebody blew this little thing up. This is where the machine gun would have been. Now we'll get on to. Now, and this is not the corrugated metal, this is the cement inside, where the corrugated metal have been scrapped by somebody. So, this is a convertible bunker, and there is that round pipe again, or what's left of it. It's very interesting that scrappers were here, but they didn't take these two metal posts. And here's an indication of what happened here as well. And we're no longer looking at, well, it used to be an old MG shelter, I guess. And then the Russians blew it up, because that's what they do. Some of these bunkers were constructed in areas with high groundwater level. So one of the methods they would use to manage this problem was that during construction, they were constructed within a watertight concrete wall of special cement that was roughly 25 centimeters thick. Behind the forward lines were the artillery positions, and of course, on this relatively flat ground, there was an artillery observation tower right next to the control bunker, which was one of the very few bunkers here designed with a special camouflage, which is a little surprising, since it is sitting right next to the tallest, most protruding object on the battlefield. The steel towers were probably the type of 70p9 or 58p8. And the shelter itself, there was most likely an observation cupola 44p08. There was many similar setups in this line, especially in those areas where an attack would be the most likely due to the advanced possibilities of the enemy. Oh, the special camouflage and everything. Oh, I like it.
And full of water.
Well, don't like that part, but...
And look at these gigantically thick rebars, almost as thick as my thumb. Look how thick that thing is.
And that's probably why, even if they blew it up, it's still here in one piece.
Yeah.
And the special cement here for camouflage.
Yep.
Love it. And that's still in. Actually, now we can see that wasn't just an add-on, this cement. This was part of the actual construction. They didn't just put it on, because I thought there was going to be a wall and this was going to be. This is actually part of the. Oh, this is amazing. Or they built the front wall and then they made dips in it while it was still wet. Very cool.
Or they put these things on, like when you took on here
like a sponge or
like plaster, and then
put a form on there.
Put a form on
That's
there.
what they did.
Like this kind of thing.
So this was absolutely part of it from the beginning. And you see those corrugated metal there. So this is basically just a room.
Oh yes. Oh
that is
no.
wet.
Look here. See, this is part of a construction. So they put stuff on here. Here too. This looks like. I don't know how to describe it. If this isn't...
I mean, they must have put a form. They must have put a form up against when they ran the concrete. So it would just run up against the form.
So, could be. Well, you can still see it. There's some kind of a sheeting or whatever you call this thing. So a little fin where they put it. There looks like a
Yeah.
almost like a tower or so.
Yeah, you can still see there was a mesh. Yeah.
Yeah, some mesh. It's like a what we say in German when you build boats, these Glasfaser thing and what have you.
Yeah.
But of course here for a different purpose.
I mean, this has got to be moss, right? This is moss that's growing. Yeah, this is moss.
Yes.
So yeah. See the structure there. That's really interesting. And then that is probably connected to the observation tower, because there'll be connections up there. And you have that really heavy steel rebar, or heavy steel beams in the roof too. This was very heavy duty.
Oh yeah. This, I would say, the wall is about a meter thick at least.
Yeah, it is.
The roof, so to speak, the roof wall, the upper wall.
Look at how thick the rebar is for the camouflage netting. A few years later, thin little spiky things for that. They had time and money here. And I wonder if this was hit by a shell and not blown up. And this is where that was. This could have been hit by a shell, couldn't it?
Oh yes, this is a shell crater.
And sort of broke its back. It was probably covered by dirt up to here as well.
Yep.
Yeah. This is a direct hit. And of course they would be shooting after this, because right here was a steel tower. So this is obviously they were going to shoot at this thing.
This must have been one of their main targets.
It's the artillery observation post. Yep. Pretty sure that would be on top of that list.
It's for German circuit stamps, it's not really expensive. But still, of course, you notice the difference. I notice the difference.
This looks rather large.
Oh yeah.
It also looks somewhat blown up, which means it could have been a lot smaller and then it just became a convertible.
Oh no, that is a big boy.
Ah.
That is a big boy.
Oh, it was still blown up. Very interesting. And it's interesting, you can see the difference between something that's blown up from the inside and something that was hit from the outside.
Oh yeah.
This looked like from the inside.
Yep. Oh, and there's actually possible to get in.
MG
Nice.
bunker. Again, huge hooks on the walls.
It's a nice piece of gravel when you go down here. So.
Yeah, I know. It's a nice handle. The corrugated metal that broke its back. There was a beam holding these together, meeting on the top up here. But somebody really didn't want this thing to be here anymore, so they blew it up. So sad when a piece of cement just angers you so much you have to blow it up. Definitely is the same with another overlapping field of fire. So this would be the front here. With the fire. No. This is not the firing embrasure, is it?
No, firing position is done.
No, yes it is. This is the firing embrasure. Yeah, that's why they're crossing overlapping fields of fire. Plus the other one is right there. So it's a very small field that they're overlapping right here. They're very close to. Why are they so close together? I mean, I would have put them several hundred meters further apart to give them more of a spread. This is me. Who am I to second guess the high command?
This is a very interesting setup of a small segment of a possible battlefield with two bunkers with overlapping fields of fire defending this area, which was also mined and covered in barbed wire trenches.
But I guess these two bunkers caused some people some headaches, since they went out of their way to make sure that they are no longer. Oh, there's the ventilation pipe. That's going down there into the wall. Are you seriously? Is this a handrail? It's a handrail. It doesn't do anything. It goes from the wall to the wall. I have never seen a handrail in a bunker before. I mean, I have, but not in a small little thing like this. See how thick the steel beams, just like big railroad spiky things. Unless the handrail goes out of that.
This is still one of the from the previous position 9 bunker.
I see it had bad days. MG bunker? No, shelter.
That's a shelter. That's what the description says. This is a crew shelter.
It is a crew shelter. This is like the one that was the one that was flooded was. So corrugated metal on the back and the sides, the hooks, crew shelter. Okay. And then it got opened up. I wonder why they would even bother blowing up a crew shelter. It's not really doing anything. You can't really fight out of it.
As I said, the communication between the shelters and bunkers, the field troops, was extremely important, especially that to the artillery further back. So all the shelters built here was connected with this landline telephone network. There are several of these terminals laid out. The cables were all buried at 2 meters depth to protect them from artillery. Many of these telephone switch points were constructed in order to allow further connections and further development of the field telephone networks for precision and special artillery. But this is something you don't see everywhere else anymore.
For your cable switch boxes. And then they fall over and you don't put them up. I think they could have set this up straight with a crane.
Easily.
See for the cable coming out there.
I would say this thing weighs maybe 1.5 tons.
Yeah.
Less than a Unimog truck.
I would say a couple of dudes good to do this.
Not really.
I mean, not a couple, but I mean, you could put some bars. You could put some pry bars on there.
It doesn't Mike Tyson's, perhaps.
I insist that when we're done digging up bodies, we'll put this thing up straight.
Now we're driving to the next position, roughly a half an hour's drive west, where the next line of heavy bunkers were constructed in 1936, also connected by trenches to defend the main thoroughfare here, which the Russians would have to travel in order to get to the next main town. And here too were several lines of bunkers, some 1,000 meters apart. And quite a few of these have been destroyed, but we will walk the battlefield to get a feel for the layout. And at the end there is quite a bit of a surprise.
It really is interesting going through these Prussian forests because you know everything was a battlefield. Literally, you have trenches strewn throughout. Some of them still have bodies in them. Like I always said, things are hiding in European forests. Holy crap, there's a steel dome on this puppy. Or what's left of this blown up puppy.
It's a big boy. And there you can see how really big this thing is.
I cannot believe that between the Dutch and the Polish scrappers, there's still a steel dome on this thing. How did this survive? Well, I mean,
yeah, it's rather big, and the only thing you can try to take it off is blow away the concrete and then use a torch.
Oh, they seem to have always found a way. It seems to be a convertible version.
And on the other side of that bunker there are various trenches as well. really blown away.
Yeah, that's the inside ceiling.
Yep.
Once upon a time. So is this slope natural? As this was the side, well, sort of a side.
Yes.
And then there was so this was actually built up in one floor inside. The whole thing wasn't 2 floors.
Yep.
I can't wait to get into it.
There is,
Because this looks.
there is not much to go into, but you can see.
This looks way. Well, hang on now. This is different. So this was for a periscope.
Observation bunker.
Oh, it's observation bunker, yeah.
It was a pure observation bunker.
It was. You couldn't really shoot out of this.
No, as I said, this is an old observation bunker.
But this is rare.
Look what they tried here.
I
Clearly a cutting torch. And up here too. They tried to go over here with a cutting torch. Look,
yeah.
there are some markings. I've never seen this before.
They actually cut through the markings.
I'm trying to see. I'm betting that's the birth year, 1936. There is a 1, there is the upper part of a 9, and here the last digit is the 6. So I'm pretty damn sure this one was built in 1936.
That this is still here, but 1936 is still very interesting because that means this was built before the war, before Todt, before everything started, when there was still lots and lots of steel and cement available.
Yep. These trenches are somewhere going down in that direction. When you go that, if you go further down, there is nothing. So they are more on the upper part of the slope, roughly around where this tree is, on that particular. But in the other direction, not too down there, but down there. When we go on the other side, then.
So they built the bunker in 36.
Yes.
And the trenches came in 44 when the war was coming here, or did they actually build infantry defenses for it? Well, in 36, so yeah, they did for 39.
Yes.
Because there was still a chance this would have been the Polish invade coming here in 39 if that had been the other way around.
Yes, yes. These are the remnants of an old trench.
Yeah, it's funny how you can always see the indents in forests.
Then down here, even bigger.
Oh yeah.
There you can see one is going to the right and one is going to the left, so they're splitting it.
And this is direction Königsberg.
Yes. Königsberg is from here only about 70 kilometers north.
So we're right on the Russian border, well, today.
Almost. We could get there rather close. Actually, we are getting rather close when we are in Hanswalde. Well, this is only about roughly a bit more than a mile away from the Russian control line.
Well, see, maybe you'll have another drone that goes crazy and attacks the Russians again. So, what did you find?
This is a part of an 8 centimeter mortar grenade. There are these little holes. This is on the bottom part here where these little rings, and then on top of it would be the big
I
boy.
see. That's right. I see the little holes there.
Yep. So you find that stuff all along here, every time. Also live ones, and they are to be treated with extreme caution.
So you pick them up and then you throw them away towards the road.
No, not really. I'll pick them up, put them on a safe spot where it can be seen by everybody, and then normally that's safe enough.
Yeah.
If we find bigger stuff, also we call the Polish border police as far as transporting the. Well, in that region here, the Polish border police is responsible for doing the removal of ammunition, together with the help of the Polish army here.
Funny how you find so much so far, so many years after the war.
It's on every field, everywhere. The whole thing here is a whole damn bloody battlefield. You find all kinds of stuff around here.
So what happened here?
As far as I know, they blow it up.
That didn't stop them from fighting here, though, after it was blown up.
It seems to have. Maybe this damage was caused here by blowing it up. It's also possible.
Yeah, usually the Russians would take things just like the Americans learned to blow things up after they took them, so they didn't have to fight for them several times. Which makes sense. I understand. Still annoying. So we're looking at 2 meters?
Yeah.
No, meter and a half?
Yes, meter and a half.
Well, oh, look at that pretty thing.
And then you can
Wow.
look up and see the stuff.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 observation dome, 6 ports, and that would be, of course, a floor. That would be anchored. This was the anchor where it was attached to the bunker. And there's, man, was this the roller for the floor, or was this for the anchor? This was the anchor's inside the cement. No, this is for the anchor.
Yes.
Into the cement. This one there and this one there, and the anchors, of course, are broken because of this whole explosion thing. And this was where the walkway was at some point. So this is all there was. It was just an observation bunker.
This is purely observation bunker. Yeah.
Are these preserved now, so they can't actually scrap them?
No.
And here's the other.
This one is not. And the other ones around here, they are also not. It's different in the place near Wormdet, which we will see later.
And that's the emergency exit down there.
Yep.
I guess you don't really need that anymore.
Nope. And then you can see here these, which is rather rare, these thick beams.
Yeah, they really did.
Normally something you do not see that often here.
Well, you don't see that very often anywhere, at least not after 1939. But you see all proper steel and rebar, and the stones are a little finer that you would see in a Regelbau construction, or a little thicker, bigger. But yeah, to begin with, they had all the materials and money to build them right.
Yes.
How did all this start for you?
It was about my East Prussian great-grandfather, who was born about 15 kilometers away from here in a little village in 1891. When I discovered it, that I have deep East Prussian roots, I started searching for my ancestors and whatever, and I traced them back to the late medieval, or to the high medieval times, back to the 13th century when this area was founded actually by the German order back then.
So you started wandering the latest battlefields of East Prussia.
I found rifles, I found all kinds of ammunition, mortar grenades, live ones, magazine boxes and what have you.
And
all kinds of stuff.
And you've been finding you've been starting to look at war graves and undocumented burials too.
Yes, that is true. That is true. My Polish buddy and I, we explore certain places because we have hints which have been in records and what have you. We located these places. Some of them we can explore. We already found one. This is the one I will show you later in the estate of Hans Salde. There we located a mass grave and what have you. But getting it out and what have you, digging it up, is another story. Well, our resources are very much limited. He has permission from the Polish authorities and what have you to dig them up, or actually he gets these permissions, so he can dig it up, and then they are brought to the German soldier cemetery in Bad Tossen. Well, he works together with our German Volksbund Deutsche Kriegsgräberfürsorge. They are actually responsible for burying the remains we are finding then.
There's still a lot of unaccounted for.
Oh yes, there are thousands of them. And sometimes you find human remains in the most unexpected places. It can be in the middle of a field when you got a hint and what have you, and then when you go into a wood or so and then you see a certain rectangular structure in the wood, you can bet it that down there is a grave. Well, it's easily identified even for a non-trained eye and what have you.
So are you finding mostly soldiers, or there must be Russian soldiers here too? And
so far we saw only German stuff.
Do you have the impression the Russians evacuated their wounded to somewhere else?
Yes, I can tell you exactly where they have been brought. They have been brought to the biggest Russian soldier cemetery outside of the main country in Braunsberg. There are about 35,000 Russian soldiers buried on that cemetery.
The Russians took all the dead from these areas and what have you. They took them away and buried them down there on the cemetery. So
Their own, or also the Germans?
No, their own. Only their own people.
What happened to the German soldiers after the battles? Because they...
Here in that area, they are on the places where they are, unless they had been already recovered. And most of them are in the places where they died in 1945.
So nobody came back to bury the German soldiers?
Oh no, oh no.
And here the civilians were the civilians driven out here, or were they...
East Prussian civilians, yes. The latest one were driven out in 1947. Those were the latest. I have an eyewitness account from a village where they took around a certain forest. There were still an awful lot of German dead bodies left. They put these bodies into these old German trenches, put some sand over it, and that was it. But it's said to the eyewitness account the Russians took the German dog tags and their identification tags and what have you. So it would be hardly possible to identify these remains if they can be found. And I know for certain that they are there, but exploring them and excavating them is a whole different story.
And the Russians, of course, didn't report they found the dead. They just took them for souvenirs? The dog tags and information? Do we know they reported them?
No. They were probably supposed to do that, but I have my doubts. Well, if they would have reported them, I would have seen them on the website on Ancestry and on the website of the Volksbund Deutsche Kriegsgräberfürsorge.
Yeah, because that's what you actually do for a living. You're a genealogist. You do all the research on the people.
Yes, that's what I mainly do. We stand here in the ground, deeper of course, as it is nowadays, and then here view. Could have been easily used as a machine gun position here.
Where was the fighting front here?
The fighting front was not
that way.
100 meters away.
In 39 or 44?
45.
45. But
Between February and March 1945.
But the east is that way, isn't it? Didn't the Russians come from the other side?
No, the Russians captured Tolkemit, which is old West Prussia, in January 1945. This way they cut off the rest of East Prussia from the Reich, and then they advanced north towards Frauenburg and Braunsburg. While they captured this line only around the 23rd of February 1945.
So was this part of the Königsberg outer circle? With Königsberg being behind you?
This is the most southern edge of the Heiligenball pocket. This is the most southern edge. This was the main battlefront here.
This is
the main battle line here.
So this was the battle. This is the pocket where Königsberg is way behind you.
Yes.
So the Russians came
60 kilometers north from here.
That's right. So they went west and then they swung up north and cut off the pocket here.
Exactly.
Right. So that's why you were fighting the other side. That's why, because I was still turned around here, because that's.
It goes down, it goes all along this hill.
This was a very deep trench since it's a little position down. Is that an MG position down there? There's a hole down there as well, isn't there?
Could also, no, it's even bigger. I would even guess that could be a mortar position. It could easily be, yes, judging by the size of it.
Yeah.
Compared to this one. This can be used for observation and as a machine gun, and the other one, judging by the size, could easily have been a German 8 cm mortar position.
Yeah.
You can actually walk through the trenches.
I mean, it seems like somebody took a lot of trouble building them, so the least thing we can do is walk through the trenches.
And up there, behind the trees, there are the remains of the big bunker. So these trenches are practically covering this little observation bunker up there. We can go the trenches and go from the other side.
So why were they? This was very much Prussia in 36.
Yeah.
Why were they building bunkers in 36?
Good question. Just depends.
Actually, I think that is a very good question. Why were they building bunkers here in 36?
Heilsberg, I do not know the reason why they built the so-called edge of the Heilsbergstellung here.
Because
it was probably in fear of that the Poles were coming here. This is the only reason I can imagine. I do not know for certain. But
yeah, I mean that must be it, because
yes.
The Russians, well,
I was going to say it was not per se a problem, but I guess they were. The Russians have always been a problem.
Here, another perfect machine gun position here. You see that area which they can cover when I'm stretching my arms here? So
Yeah.
perfect machine gun position. And you can see that tree was not there in 1945. It's much younger, much younger compared to the other one on that side. That I'm betting actually is much older. That tree down there.
Certainly the big one there, yeah.
The big one down there. This is much older.
I found you have to know a little bit about something about trees to determine how. I spent a lot of time looking at trees going, was that here 75 years ago?
These Fichten, as we call it, or Tannen, as we call it in German, their rings, as far as I know, they are much thinner and what have you, as they are in an old German oak tree, for example.
Oh, yes.
They are much thinner, and this is why they go not that big like an old tree. An oak tree can go big in width or in thickness, so to speak, up about 1.5 meters. And imagine 1.5 meters tree. So
Yeah.
my left arm to my right arm, judging a big tree like that, you can easily say it's about 300 years old.
So there wasn't really that much of a forest here.
There were forests and whatever, but not that many as you see it now, or probably less and whatever.
Yeah, I mean, you would think there would be some field of fire, but oh, this is very wide.
Mortar, most likely also a mortar position, I'm betting. Judging by the wideness, it would fit in easily an 8 centimeter mortar, and then firing towards the Russian controlled line. As I said, the Germans held this position here for about 2 months, from the 5th of February 1945 until the 22nd of March. So almost 2 months they were holding this line here.
And there was not really anywhere to surrender to at that time.
No, the only way they could go up is towards Heiligenball and have a chance going onto a ship to the Frischhafen or Kurischhafen, and then go down to direction Danzig on a ship or what have you.
Or Denmark, if...
Many people landed in Denmark, as you well know, after 1945. They were encamped there in various places in Denmark. You can see the bunker remains.
So all of this was the closest defensive ring for that bunker. Yes. Was this a command post or a fighting bunker?
Observation.
Observation again?
Observation or command post.
So was...
Something like that.
Now were they called... There was a German artillery batteries behind here somewhere?
No.
No?
As far as I know, no.
So they couldn't call in artillery. And there probably wasn't a whole lot of Luftwaffe.
Oh yes, there was. In Heiligenball, at the Heiligenball pocket. The Germans were still using, as far as they had fuel, Messerschmitt 109 and the Focke-Wulf 190.
Okay.
They still had a lot of fuel. I know in Braunschweig and what have you, there had been old artillery positions, or for example, about 15 kilometers from here, there was a big 15 centimeter battery used by the Germans for some time. They could easily have dropped here grenades into this range wall.
So there was some artillery at some...
In certain areas there were artillery. They used anti-aircraft cannons, the 88 as simple artillery. They used the leichte Feldhaubitze 18, so 10.5 centimeters. But they also used, since they had that much ammunition and cannons, the heavy battery 15 centimeter cannon. Schwere Feldhaubitze 18.
Yeah, there must have been some Pack and something.
So anti-Pack cannons, whatever, they used that stuff too here.
But that was sitting among the lines anyway. They didn't have a...
Yes, well, the use for one here in this area would be maximum the 5 centimeter Pack. Well, a 7.5 would be too big to position here, but a 5 centimeter Pack you can relatively easy position here. Okay, you do need a truck and for the transport. But
the 37 would be a little bit too light for this. But
yeah, this you could use for infantry support only.
I mean, I think the 37mm Puck has gotten a bad reputation, because if you really was good, you could actually do some damage with it if you knew where to hit.
Yes, if you knew where to hit. Look here.
Speaking tube?
Could be.
That's a hell of a hook for a camouflage netting. That's not just for camouflage.
Oh no.
That must be interior for something heavier.
Maybe there was actually an observation dome and whatever. Well, see these big steel beam down there,
Yeah.
and this screw threaded thing and what have you.
This was the roof
Yes.
that flipped over.
Yep.
It's a little bit like a very broken puzzle to figure these things out. Yeah, there's weatherproofing's under. There's still the remnants of the weatherproofing.
Yep.
Sitting there.
And you can clearly see it was blown up.
Yeah, didn't happen organically. But it's a very small core. It doesn't. You can tell it wasn't that big.
No, as I said, it's observation communication bunker of some sort.
And the trenches run up here, of course.
Yes, they go down there that direction. And on the other side of the parking spot of that area, you will see about 4 or 5 bunkers, if memory serves me correct.
So they built a whole line here. That's very interesting.
Yes, but I'm pretty damn certain these trenches were not built in 1936. They were built in 1945.
Yeah.
Or perhaps already in late 1944, when they knew already that the Russians were coming, so they dug these trenches here.
The Gauleiter for Königsberg, that was
It was Erich Koch.
Erich Koch, yeah.
He was from the Rhineland. He was the silly one who escaped via Pillow.
Oh, he escaped?
Yes, he escaped. He
Good.
escaped via Pillow. Via Harbor Pillow. He had his own ship down there, and then he got away. I'm pretty damn sure an artillery shell impact. Well, it's behind the trench, not facing this direction, and when you see that hole, I'm pretty damn sure there an artillery shell went down.
Oh, yeah, here?
Yes, this hole down there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you see the trench goes all the way around.
Exactly. So, logical explanation,
Yeah.
an artillery shell hit down there.
That is the Russian way of war. Fire lots and lots and lots of artillery at everything.
It's also the American.
Well, yeah, that's true. It was also Napoleon. I mean, let's face it, it works.
Look down there, what is coming down there? What kind of big explosion went down there? Yeah,
No kidding.
that was a real big boy. Wouldn't imagine, I would probably could easily be a 100 kilogram bomb one, so it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, this all.
And this is clearly not an artillery shell crater, this is a bomb crater.
Yeah. And that tree was here. The tree could tell us.
Oh yeah,
He was here at that time. He survived. Took out some of his roots, but he's still
he
here.
was lucky.
He was lucky. Nature always finds a way, I found. Take note, please. Will somebody please tell Greta Thunberg that nature always finds a way? This is almost deep enough that it could be a vehicle shelter.
Oh yes, it was. It was once.
And I think that's...
See the way here? Up here? It was a vehicle shuttle.
Yeah. And I think that's what we're seeing a lot on the geoportal, of those holes. I think this is, actually, we can pull that up right now. The bunker's up there, and the trenches run down behind the vehicle shelter, and then again continue here through the forest. It really is ringed. And you can still in the background hear the Polish military doing firing practice, and the old German Truppenübungsplatz near here, of course.
They have a position up there. Looks like a car. That's the pole.
Yeah.
Yep. Also,
That's almost big enough for an LKW.
LKW, or perhaps there could have been even a little cannon or so. They could have placed here a cannon. It would have been
That's-
possible. It would have been possible to bring it up.
That is
At
true.
least 5 centimeter or so, or if they had the truck even to put a 7.5 centimeter anti-tank gun up here. For an 88 it would have been too big, but 5 centimeter or 7.5 centimeter anti-tank cannon could have been brought up here.
Yeah. Yeah. And if some of these trees weren't I mean, some of a lot of the trees around here
They
are new.
1945,
Yeah, they are.
but you can clearly see the trees
Yeah.
which are much, much older than 1945. Much older.
interesting dip.
Mid or late February 1945, they bombed the city up here in Old Brownsburg and was heavily damaged.
The one with the big nice church.
Yes,
That-
St. Katharina Church. This is the church in which my great-grandfather was baptized in 1891. But that church was destroyed in 1945 while they used the main tower as a observation post, and the German army blew the tower up.
Of
The
course.
whole church was only a skeleton, pieces of a skeleton, but luckily the Poles, with the help of the Germans of course, rebuilt it in 1981.
So of course they had to build up defenses on both sides of the road because
Yes.
it's a natural entrance road.
And this was the only way from Frauenburg towards the city of Braunschweig. The Russians could have gone only through that street from that area. There was no other direct entryway, and so they took it.
All right, so we're back on the other side with trenches running up to the next fortified position. But yeah, it's just interesting that the bunkers were here in place at that time. Is that the same type? It almost looks the same.
I'm pretty sure it is. But as you can see, there are less stuff remaining.
Yeah, this is well blown up. Certainly.
When we go in this area, then turn to the right, there are, is it 4 or 5 more of these bunker remain.
I'm just curious why there's a vertical. What's this? This must have been the entranceway or door, since it's a vertical slat. And large hooks again. Alright. Yeah. Here. And heavy rebar, so clearly before the war again.
This direction, you could even see an old bridge from the old Hafenverbahn, which is still there.
I see, I figured I saw water down there. This is a fairly good position to have placed on the top of a ridge overlooking a waterway.
Not just overlooking the water, look at what it's done. That area.
Oh, it's a huge field here.
It's a gigantic, perfect viewing point.
Yeah.
You could see any approach coming from that street or even from the field and what have you. This is a perfect observation point.
Yeah. I mean, they were so perfect that they planned it many years before the war and way into a war that has gone completely sideways from what they had expected. It was still in the right place. So these are the same construction, which is interesting. Oh yeah. And I take the roof is back there. Yeah, they blew these up really well, considering that they're only observation bunkers. That's probably the ports of ventilations pipes there. Wow. Yeah, the roof pancaked up there. Oh, the wall attachments there.
A bit more trenches.
Oh yeah. Yeah, running to the back of it.
Yep. Shooting.
Yeah.
This is shooting. They went
It is.
most likely bullet, armor-piercing bullet. This
So-
is not done by breaking it
no,
up.
no, no.
You see the rounded edges here. This is so smooth.
Yeah, so after it was blown up, they were still fighting over it.
The Russians didn't pursue until late, mid-late March 1945 to get to Braunschweig. They were holding these positions. They did not try to advance until mid-late March 1945.
And there's not really any reason to, because they were going the other direction, really.
They were going in several directions.
Yeah.
They were going to the west, to Silesia and whatever, and of course they went up with a big portion towards Königsberg then.
And having a bunch of Germans that was just bottled up in a place, they're not really doing anything, they can't go anywhere.
True.
Yeah, little shell hole there.
Oh yes.
True to what was customary. We're now 1,000 meters in front of where we were before, and here's the next line of bunkers, because of course I had to build these in several lines. This looks bigger. Now, I will now tell you what this is. This fell over. That looks like this is the screw to hold in a dome. No, wait a minute. Or a Panzerplatte. Because they're on top as well. Why is there screws? So was this a half dome facing this direction? They wouldn't screw it in from the top and the sides.
It could be. You can see down there, he's half going down there, so it must have been like a half circle down there, like an arch.
Yeah.
You can see he's curving down there.
So
on the
like
left side.
an Panzerturm.
Could have been.
It's just interesting to see the mounting screws on the sides and the top at the same time, unless there was two Panzerplatte that was put together. This is weird. I've never seen this before.
Oh.
I mean, obviously there's a groove there. There's about the size of a Panzerplatte or a dome.
One point, but it goes. You see up there. There's more. This is the whole bottom part. This is the whole bunker. This is one part of the bunker.
And here's nets for the camouflage. That doesn't really make.
I wouldn't think so. It is
Not inside. Not here. No.
This must be
This is
something
in-
else holding.
Yeah, this is inside.
And here you can see later the scrapper's work. Clearly markings from a cutting torch.
Yeah, that's. I mean, certainly there was a steel something that was mounted there.
You can see it. This is clearly the tool marks of a cutting torch.
Yeah.
Up there.
And here, these hooks are in throughout. It's interesting because I haven't noticed them in any of the bunkers before, that there was heavy hooks inside. Now I'm gonna have to have a look again. But that was the fighting front, definitely.
Yes. This was here, as you can see down there. There are parts of the bunker there, so must have been the back part of the bunker, so to speak.
Yeah.
Probably the staying room where the soldiers stayed then.
This is very interesting, actually.
And here you can see tube or what have you.
There's, yeah.
That hollow thing down here. Oh, and a lot of insects.
Well, yes.
But this
But-
is normal here.
They're not flying. They're not flying, so I'm good with them.
Okay, you have your favorite insects then. Besides your beloved mosquitoes.
I prefer bats, honestly. I like bats. They eat mosquitoes.
Oh yeah, then I can understand why you like them.
See? I named them. And it's interesting because even though we're 1 kilometer from the last position, there was a valley, and then here's another ridge over another valley. So the defensive lines are built the same way, overlooking valleys. Very interesting. Well, it does look like something but shooting at it and camping around it. Well, it looks like somebody's been using the trench for garbage fill.
Oh yes, they did it.
Yeah. I mean, wow.
Yep.
That's, holy shit.
And this is not Polish refurbishment,
I know.
that design. This is German design.
Is this is camouflage?
Yes. Oh yes. that's
Wow.
camouflage.
That I have never seen that before. To make it look like a rock formation.
Yep.
But they did that a lot, also with the Pommernstellung. They built them in secrecy, and hid them and camouflaged them as everything. Wow, this is really
You can
cool.
see many of those trees here, they had been already around in 1945. And
Yeah,
this
that tree is
this
certainly
for
is
example,
not.
it's about, I would say, 100 years old. Easily.
Certainly, yeah.
Easily.
Wow. Right on another ridge. Huge piece of farm. You can just see really, really far here. On top of the hill. And then it is just camouflaged. This is just amazing. Never seen this. Well, I'm probably not entirely sure. I've never seen it before, but I certainly didn't expect to see how this was plastered this way and then painted. This is awesome. All right, let's go inside. So there was a Panzerturm?
No, observation. This is purely observation,
But
as far as I go. Observation, communication of some type.
I don't think this was an observation bunker because there's no ports to.
Look here.
What does that say?
It's hardly readable, but
Does it say home at the end? Yes. I'd probably say something like close or. And here are these heavy hooks. These are heavy hooks for beds.
could be. Yes, could be. Yes,
Yeah.
that would fit in perfectly. One of these beds on the other side.
Here.
Munition.
Und so drauf.
Those then probably also used for storage.
Sprachrohr.
Sprachrohr.
To whom? Who are you talking to here?
Good question. Maybe it's to somebody outside, or that there were telephone lines, cables, and what have you.
And here as well. Is that Luftung?
Yes, I would say so.
Does it say something like that? Ah, it's too bad they didn't write any graffiti. Yeah, well, here's the pegs. This is different from the Regelbauten, where the wood would go all the way up in the walls to mount things. So you probably have this lower, and then you have these for the top of the hooks. And before the war really started, you could spend this much thick metal on a bedding hook. In 1944, you would never see anything like this because the metal they were using as little as possible. That's interesting. But yeah, that must be what that is.
Hardly seeable, but there's also been some writing.
Yeah, that continued.
Here's another, which is relatively easy. Entwässerung. Something with Entwässerung.
Yeah, I mean, the text starts all the way up here. This is
And this is clearly ENTW, Wässerung, so Entwässerung, Schacht or what have you, and then W, I cannot make out the next letter, S, this is probably an O.
BEI by IA. Sometimes it's easy to stand a little bit away.
I think I got it, this means verschließen, closing.
Close when door is open, maybe. Or turn off light when the door.
By who the heck knows what? Entwässerungsverschluss verschließen. So, drainage or what have you, lock, close it. When there was too much water coming in here or what have you, then shut it off and so that no water can get into the bunker.
Yeah, because there is no drainage
Yeah.
at all. Well. Oh, somebody put a door in here.
Yeah.
Okay, this is original, so. All right, I think we take a look. Okay, somebody made this a little summer house, or tried.
Yep. This is Well after 1945.
Look at the separation between the beam and the door. That's unusual.
You can see here these old plugins.
Yeah,
These 11 holes, these are down there.
yeah. There'll be a metal door frame here. You want to see this on the other side.
A dome of some sorts here. This is the observation room.
Yep.
Which is really strange because it's pointing away
It's pointing
from the front.
No, the front is up there.
The front is that, or the front is this way.
In that direction. Down there is the water. There is the Halfuferbahn track. There are steel things running down there. If we look further down, we can actually see the old railway track of the Halfuferbahn.
Okay, so we actually walked sort of around.
Yeah.
Okay.
Down there, about 2 kilometers from here, is the Frischer, a large body of water.
Okay.
Down there, in that direction, is the city Frauenburg.
Right, okay. So that makes sense that there was a dome in this direction then.
Yep, exactly.
And this was like, this would have been identical to the one by the road.
Yep.
But if this was a steel observation dome, this was very large. This is like, I've never seen a Panzerkuppel this big.
You see these thick rebar again?
Yeah.
World War II beginning.
Yeah, they had money to spend here. I mean, the only thing I can think of is there was a Panzerplatte front and a Panzerplatte top. Because a steel designated rounded steel cupola or half dome here, it's too big. Very, very interesting.
This was a real battlefield. Bodies, munitions, and much more are found here every year. And the bunkers here really do give a feel of the desperate fight in 1945. Here's much more to see, and I look forward to showing you. But how could we explore the evolution of fortifications without seeing these, the early mid-war bunkers? Next, I want to show you the Prussian coastal defenses around Danzig. I'm sorry, Polish friends, Gdansk, of course. I don't know how I keep forgetting that. Oopsie.
My name is Tino Struckmann. I run Lost Battlefields. Every year, I travel around the world to try to bring you to all the most interesting historical military locations from modern wars and the World War II special projects, battlefields, forts, fortresses, and tunnels, everything else. Things you may not be able to see or go to yourselves. Please join me on Patreon or join Lost Battlefields through the website so you get access to all my files and my notes. It really does help, and like, follow, share here on the channel if you can. That helps too.